So I've had a pretty significant pivot in my business over the weekend. So I thought I would share what led to that decision, and maybe it will help you when you're trying to figure out your business strategy, because this stuff is always shifting. The sand shifts under your feet in terms of your business and where you're going in your direction. And we're going to tie it into Good to Great, which is a book by Jim Collins. It talks about companies and they were doing like okay in performance and what they did to make a shift to get to great performance and the difference in that. So I think that talking through that framework will hopefully be useful as well, and giving you examples of how I've applied it to my business. I think the biggest issue with business is often the person running the business doesn't know what to do next. And so that's the big problem, is like, well, I've got all these different opportunities. What do I actually pick to follow? There's also an issue when you know a lot of things, which one do you actually choose and focus on? And I've had I have problems because I've read, I have a list, 325 business books, over, because they're not all on the list, but I know a lot of stuff, and sometimes we just forget some of the more basic things that we should be doing that we've learnt along the way, but we don't apply it to the situation. Okay, so what woke me up to this was I was on a call with a bunch of Canadian businesses on the weekend, and I'm in New Zealand, and it was talking about the tariffs that are happening in the US and Canada and all that kind of thing. And I was sitting there, and there were people on there who, one of the guys had sold a food and beverage company, he'd scaled it and sold it for $43 million. And I was thinking, well, we're trying to go over and talk to these businesses in Canada and the US and that, and help them grow. And because we were focused on plant-based things, all these kind of food and beverage companies fell into that. And this is becoming why would they listen to us over here in New Zealand when someone's done it over in their market that they could listen to? And it woke me up to, there's a part of so Jim Collins, Good to Great, there's one of the chapters in there, one of the frameworks is called the Hedgehog Concept. And so with the Hedgehog Concept, you talk about there's 3 things that your business needs to get to this great shift. And it comes from, there's a parable where a fox is kind of distracted and going after many things, and they're good at many different things, where a hedgehog is really good at just one thing. Its only defense, it doesn't run away, it doesn't climb trees, it just rolls into a ball, and then people can't attack it, the fox can't attack it, and then it goes out of the ball again. It does one thing extremely well. And so for a business to be successful, it really needs to do one thing extremely well, better than anyone else. This means that we're going over there and trying to compete on things that, well, we haven't scaled in a food and beverage company to that size, and that becomes difficult. So our one thing that we wanted to focus on was helping plant-based brands. But as we've started to reach out into the market, we've found that all these plant-based brands, they're often accidentally vegan. So they are made from vegan ingredients, but not because the founder was vegan or it's just for vegans. It's actually for a broader market, and it just happens to be vegan. It might be gluten-free, or it might be this. It's not, this is only for gluten-free people, this is only for vegans. And that had been a bit of a misstep in our market research of what we did. And our targeting was getting broader and broader in terms of, well, we're talking to all these plant-based brands. Do we really set ourselves apart if they're talking to the general market? Our unique positioning of working with only vegan brands doesn't really make a difference. It's just my personal preference. So that's not a competitive advantage for a business. And this was getting murkier and murkier. I couldn't see through the water. I was like, oh my God, how do we fix this issue? And listening to this call and hearing these experts on it, it's like, well, they're experts in that particular area and scaling those types of companies because they've done it before, and we haven't done those particular companies. We're just more trying to be experts in plant-based. So this ain't working. What's happening? Let's go back to the drawing board and figure this out. And so the 3 concepts in the Hedgehog Concept is, the first one is finding something that you're deeply passionate about. Number 2 is what can you be the best in the world at? And number 3 is what drives your economic engine. So let's talk about all of those for a second. The first one, what are you deeply passionate about? So I'm deeply passionate about being plant-based and being a vegan, and that is part of the reason we started going in that direction. And I'm passionate about marketing, and so that we had that box ticked, right? So I was like, okay, great. What drives our economic engine is like, well, if we work with plant-based brands, we worked out how we had an offer and we're going to make money from it and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't the issue. I knew how to hire the staff in that I needed to scale up, and the cash flow is all mapped out to the first $1 million of the company, and not really the issue if we can sell the offer, which we've been able to do as well. So that's probably not the problem. So number two, like of that framework, what can you be the best of the world at? And I kind of woke up and went, oh, can we actually be the best in the world at this? If we really target into vegan companies, can we? And is there actually enough of a market that we can? We thought we had about 52 businesses on the list, but as we started working through that list, it kept being accidentally vegan, accidentally, not fully vegan companies on purpose, where the founder is really passionate about being vegan. And so we've worked with for 2 of those out of people we attracted, where we had about 7 type thing, and a lot of them were accidentally vegan. So threw that all away, went, what can we actually be the best of the world at? And I realized, and I was talking on this Canadian call, and they're all like, yeah, go Canada, and we're helping each other out and that kind of thing. And I'm like, why am I focusing so far away where I can't be there in person, where I can't do different stuff, when I could come back and focus in Auckland, where I live in New Zealand? And this is like my home base, and this is where I'm actually from. Well, not from, I live here, right? And that means it makes it so much easier, because we can like see people in person, and we're playing as a bigger fish in a smaller pond, because I have all this overseas experience of working with the US and Canada and UK and stuff. So bringing it back to New Zealand is actually quite a powerful step, to be someone who knows a lot coming back into this market and trying to stand out here. So that got me thinking of, why are we not just focusing on these New Zealand businesses and providing that they're not like, there's no animal cruelty or those kind of things, and I'm ethically happy with working with the companies. There's nothing to hold me back from working with them. We just need to find the right ones. So it started for us to go, okay, well, what can we be the best at the world at, and what am I passionate about, and finding that combination, because we can figure out the economics of getting an offer to make that. I replanned it for all New Zealand, and that was fine. So what am I deeply passionate about? Like, I love growing businesses, and so this is fun for me. Could retire, could do nothing, could sit on the beach, but I enjoy growing businesses and the game. When I really think about what I enjoy doing, I'm not so excited about working with $100 million companies and adding a little bit of like millions of dollars to their revenue. Even, I don't know, about 10 million and plus, I've never worked with a lot of them, with teams and bureaucracy and that kind of thing. I really like young companies and startups where you get to shape the future of the company and where it's going. The biggest one that I've worked with and inside got up to about $8 million. So I was in that 6 to 8 million range, and we grew it by a couple of million in there. And that was more exciting. There were issues with it because I couldn't control completely the direction of where it was going. However, it was more thrilling for me to have, they had a couple of they had enough employees to leverage what we were doing to a high level. I also enjoy working with startups and talking business about what's the strategy and how do you figure out. It's just really super hard, and it's not really appreciated, because anyone who's new to business thinks this stuff will be easy, and it's not. And then when you make it look easy, they're like, well, yeah, it's because my business is so amazing. And it's like, well, no, it's because of what we did to package it to make it amazing. You were going to go off and like waste time and money doing something that never would have worked. That aside, there's that sweet spot in there that we still need to really narrow down of who that is and how we target them, and who that is in terms of what is that niche that we can be the best in the world at. Is it a specific type of business? I've helped info businesses, service businesses, e-commerce businesses, and businesses that have e-com and retail and that kind of thing. So I'm all over the map, and maybe that's part of our strength. We can do multiple different types. I'm not sure, but we're figuring that out. I'm also passionate about teaching, so I like being able to teach people marketing and business growth and that kind of thing. So there's 2 layers to that. I could go and teach people, business owners. My frustration with that is, like, I've done some coaching and that kind of thing, and getting people to actually do the work and understand what you're doing is difficult, and it takes time. And business owners aren't often interested in doing the marketing stuff. They like doing the bit of the business they like. So I actually prefer to train like team members inside my own business that then they can go and work for those businesses to do good marketing and that kind of thing. And I think that gives me a longer term payoff. If I invest 3, 5, 10 years into training someone, they can like go and do that for clients as well. So I think that's probably going to be our approach rather than me going out and teaching business owners, but we're figuring this out as we go along. I guess, so let's bring this back to a summary so it actually kind of makes sense. And for your own business, think about how you're answering those 3 questions, and I'll give you my answers at the moment, but this is constantly evolving, and this is what strategy is. You pick what you think the right direction is, and then you pivot slightly. Sometimes it's like this is a pretty big pivot, 90-degree pivot, versus slight corrections in the direction that you're going. So what am I deeply passionate about? Growing businesses. I have things, I call them revenue levers, where you go in and you insert these into the business and it grows the revenue. So I'm passionate about that and sharing them with people. Often these are fundamental things that people forget to do, or they get too lazy to do it, or they get bored, and doing the real fundamentals well makes a good business. So I'm passionate about that part, and I'm passionate about teaching, probably teaching my team. What can we be, well, what drives the economic engine? Being able to work with businesses. They need to be of a certain size so they can bring us in, pay for us to do the marketing for them, so then we can help grow their business. Their business is growing, they've got a marketing team that's cheaper than hiring an internal person, and an internal person, when they hire them for cheap, doesn't know what they're doing, or they have to spend too much to get a marketing manager, and then that marketing manager doesn't want to do all the boring shit anyway because they just want to manage people. And so it fills that gap between when you're hiring your first marketing people, or building up to a marketing manager, or building a team. And so I don't know how we handle that transition once they grow too big for us, if they do, or how we handle that, whether we train people in their team or whatever. That's a side note for our economic engine at the moment. I think that's the piece for it. And then the part 2 was, what can we be the best in the world at? I think if we really focus in on Auckland, and when it says the best in the world, what it means is your world, however you define it. So your world might be, if you're a dentist and you're in a particular suburb of a city, that might be your world. So you need to be the best dentist in that suburb, because most people won't drive a couple of suburbs to see a dentist. People will, if you become really, really good. People will fly across the country to see a good dentist, or to a different country altogether for a great offer. But it's probably that suburb. For us, the city, I think, of Auckland will be our focus. If Auckland's working well, we've got New Zealand, obviously, because we're here, but our focus is really going to be the best in Auckland at being able to grow these small businesses and help them reach the next level. I'm hoping that there is enough of a market that we can get people from around, they might be $200,000, $300,000 in, and get them to that $1 million level. I guess here, as I film this video, that's what I'm imagining the sweet spot is, because that's the most exciting bit for me. And then we could take them $1 million to 10 million as well. That requires some other shifts and some other people that would bring in to help that process. That's a bit of my ramble video of what I'm thinking about, where we're going. I don't know if it's useful for you. You probably, if you're the one person that made it this far, then it's a miracle. Or maybe you're watching this 10 years from now and it all worked out, and look, I predicted it all. So interesting. Always reflect on your strategy, make it better, and always improve your business. Don't sit on your laurels hoping things will work out. Make sure that if you've tested things enough and they're not working, you need to pivot and test different things until you figure out the path that's going to work for your business.